Hello, all you spry tubers out there. Welcome to Dames of Thrones Season 5 edition, where filmmaker, gamer extraordinaire, and the behind-the-scenes awesomeness known as Sesh, and the writing and directing sensation known as Maria talk shop on Game of Thrones. As for me, I'm Jonathan, and unlike our two experts, have no industry experience whatsoever. So in other words, they're the fire, and I'm Shireen Baratheon's smoldering body. And now, to your Dames of Thrones, Sesh and Maria.
That was awful.
Too soon. Too soon.
Pew, 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 pew.
That was dark.
Woo! 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 Oh, it's been a long day. It's been a long day. That's right, folks. I'm still here. Somehow.
That's good and dark. Real good and dark. All right, you want to give us a little more of an I'm distracted. More of an opening. We're switching up not so much our format so much as just like one of our questions, since we've been setting up so much and so much has happened and now even more is happening and we are introduced to less and less characters every season. We're switching up our favorite character introduced this season to our least and most satisfying things this season. So it could be, I didn't want to just say moments, but they could be moments, they could be plot points, they could be characters coming together and smooching and all kinds of other fun things. So who would like to start?
I will. For me, a satisfying moment was Arya killing Barristan Selmy, especially as you see him become just this monster and just so abusive and a pedophile and all this stuff. This is the first time I see her taking control in a while and becoming just like a true monster. It was fun. It was fun watching her gouge his eyes out and just slaughter him. That was brilliant.
That was Maren Trant.
Whoa there.
Oh, Maren Trant! I'm sorry.
Yeah, but she could.
Darn it.
Yeah, she could have done it to
You know what I mean.
to Barristan Selmy also. I would have been fine with it.
Maren Trant. Thank you. Oh, that's embarrassing. That's who I meant. Maren Trant. Oh, yeah.
Look, it's fun to see her murder people.
Yeah, especially him.
Especially, like, they gave us so much more fuel. Like, it wasn't even just like, oh, he's on her list. Like,
Wait, what?
I was saying, like, they gave us so much more fuel to enjoy his murder. Like, it wasn't just that he was on her list. Like, oh, cool, let's make him, like, an abusive, gross pedophile as well.
Yeah. The least satisfying and kind of most satisfying thing for me also was Cersei slowly getting tortured and her final walk of shame. It was satisfying in some ways to see her get punished for everything that she was doing and get tricked, the trickster, as she thinks she's so tricky, getting tricked. Yet it's not satisfying because you know she's not changing a bit.
Yeah, I can feel that. Like, it was definitely satisfying for, like, the moment. Like, she gets imprisoned right after antagonizing Marjorie. But then, like, after that, it's like, we know she's not gonna die in a cell. So it kind of makes me rooting for how the hell is she gonna get out of this?
Mm-hmm.
But, like, there's not, like, that kind of satisfaction. Like, getting somebody's eyes gouged out. Like, that's just not how we want to see Cersei go.
For me, and we're probably going to hear this a lot from me this episode, this season, and episode. We're doing a podcast, right?
Yes.
Oh, man. What a day, guys. What a day. But I don't know. It wasn't very satisfying for me, everything with Cersei. I mean, she did get some of what she deserved, in terms of her making her own bed and having to lie in it. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't want to be spending time watching that. It was disturbing. It was meant to be disturbing. But I don't know. I didn't get much satisfaction out of that.
I mean, the shame walk is definitely iconic, which is great. But yeah, like it's not like enjoyable. Like it, if anything, kind of made me just sympathize with her more, almost more than a lot of the other stuff that's happened.
Yeah, I just felt like it was fueling more of her stupidity. Like I could just sense her coming up with dumb ideas as she was getting tortured. It was just like, ah, come on.
She's memorizing every face. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna cut off your arms. I'm gonna kill you. Like just everyone the entire way.
I
Yeah.
I do have to give her credit though that she was able to remember what people looked like, convey it to the mountain, and then the mountain was able to track them down and kill them. That was intriguing. It's pretty good. It's like playing telephone
Well, they
with a
probably
zombie
have yellow pages at the the Red
at
Keep.
the
I
Red Keep.
mean, I mean, the one guy they showed was definitely bragging about it, but I think the implication is, yeah, like he was going around town just murdering anyone who talked about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good call. I mean,
Good call.
that is called power. That is how I would run.
Oh,
It was, it was pretty great. Let's see. I think most satisfying for me, and like I honestly like never really fathomed this. Like it was kind of pseudo mentioned, early on, like watching the series, talking with friends and that kind of thing. But I think like Tyrion meeting Danny, like it felt like fan fiction, but so good. Like it was just like this is happening. They're actually joining forces. Oh my god, now I'm cheering for both of them twice as much, and like this feels like they are where they were meant to be, and that was just insanely satisfying to me. And it was not, I mean, it was something that was like kind of obviously laid out if you pay attention to the characters talking and like what some of their goals are, and like varies, and like a few other things and indicators, but like it wasn't something I I tried not to go too far into what I really, really think will happen, because I think the show is so good about surprising us. And this was one of those things that, like, yeah, maybe if I really thought about it or let my own like fan fiction come out, I could have been like, oh, what if he becomes one of their councils? Like that'd be so fantastic. And I just didn't think about that happening. And when it did, it just felt like the most fantastic fan fiction. But it wasn't. It's canon.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is pretty cool to see him finally be able to help somebody worth helping. Like,
Yeah.
he really wanted to help his family. He really cared for them. He really wanted to guide them to do good things, and he really fought for that, but they just weren't in that place. And to now see him potentially flower as a leader with somebody who has a better sense of ethics is exciting.
It really is. I've been super excited for it as soon as that was mentioned, and to see it happen was really nice too. And it wasn't too much fanfare either. Like it leaves me wanting a lot more.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. I definitely had a few other like small things. I mean, there's a few other like really satisfying moments. Like Brienne gets her revenge, which is fabulous, so deserved.
So that points me actually to my why.
Oh,
Oh,
I was actually
do we want to jump ahead? Do we want to jump ahead?
well, it's not really jumping, it's just that I won't say why later.
Okay, okay.
So, I was actually disappointed in Brienne for leaving her post for the revenge, because that's who she was this warrior for justice, and yes, I get it that that was part of on her list of things to do, but she was on a mission, a sworn oath mission to sit at her post and watch out and try to save Sansa at all costs. And if she had stayed, she would have seen the light go out on. she would have seen the flame, but she left to get revenge. So she kind of betrayed her nature or her own ethics in that way, and that bothered me because I just think so highly of her.
Yeah, she is for the series in trying to help guard and save people at this point. She's pretty bad. She's pretty bad at it.
I mean, she's trying though.
Oh, she's trying hard.
She's kind of got the Ned Stark syndrome where she's like, honor's gonna get you killed. Like, you sometimes don't have to be that honorable. Or you don't have to be that honorable. Sometimes you'll get your job done if you're not.
Yeah. She, that part about her I like. I like that she has a sense of ethics and she has a sense of honor.
It's so strong, which is wonderful. She is a great character.
Yeah. She did though. I do agree with Maria there that she let her desire for vengeance get above her doing her sworn duties, which is a shame because that was contrary to a lot of the actions of her character up to this point, which is interesting because that seems to be the case for a lot of characters this season.
Well, I will bet you that character flaw is going to show up again, which might end up getting her killed. I think that's a setup for later.
Interesting. Who else does she have on her list to kill, though?
It might not be a kill thing, though. It might be like a Jamie involvement thing.
Oh, she starts making out with him and like the White Walkers cut her down. That would be. Don't cut her down. They just cut down Sansa and Arya, and she's like, oh no. Count it, season 8.
All right, yeah, add it to the list. Things we will see.
Oh gosh.
I think there was. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna disagree. It didn't stand out too much for me. Like there wasn't really anything she could really do. It was just hey, let me know, okay, so I can go worry and not do anything because like she's outside of the castle. There's a whole army. Like even though they were leaving at the time, there's still gonna be people there, and it was just. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with her getting her revenge. And that was sweet, deserved revenge for her honor and against Baratheon. So.
I mean, he was already dead, though. I mean, come on.
Kill him again. Kill him twice. Deserves it, man. Ugh, terrible. Let me see. What else do I have here? I have another most. I think I have this one a couple of times, but this is just because I totally ship it, and it's like, one of my favorite couples in the series is Grey Worm and Missandre. I know they finally kiss, and it's so cute. And they're precious, and I really want them to be safe.
Aww,
that's very sweet. Was this was their sex scene?
No, that's just next season, I believe, or the season after.
Never mind, everybody. Spoiler alert! Do not listen to what I just said.
Very well edited episode. We'll talk about that when that's the time. But I ship them. I definitely ship them. It was very cute. It's very sweet. They're like one of my favorite couples in it. So I really did like that. I do know I have a thing that is I think my least satisfying or most disappointing with this season, and it stretches a little bit beyond just this season. I am pretty much fully the whole arc of it. Entirely disappointed in Arya's faceless men training and journey. Whole thing. I wasn't into it. I liked some ideas in it. I don't think the right stuff was explored. I thought there were a lot of distractions without purpose. I thought I wasn't too into it. I thought every time where she went out to go have a test of taking a name, it was one of like two kinds of tests. It was I don't know how they're gonna play it, because with the gods and like kind of that kind of world being in place, there is like a fate element involved. And so for both of her tests, there were basically huge reminders of who she specifically is that were getting in the way of her passing those tests. So I don't know if it was something laid out ahead of her, like where she has to either overcome that, which is the implication, and neither time does she, or if it was more of a these are out here to see if this is really who you are and what your fate's going to be outside of the faceless man stuff. I didn't like I didn't like either of them during it. Neither of them were fun or interesting. I don't think either of them were the faces of the people she had gotten to know prior. What's his name with the long hair and the highlight?
Jagan?
Yes.
Yeah, Jack and Hagar.
Yes. So he just completely didn't feel the same as a character. I don't think it was the same guy. So that's kind of disappointing. We didn't see her dancer, which is disappointing. And so there was a lot of other. I felt like it was built up for such a long time, almost like since we met her teacher, and we got just little tidbits of him, and he was very charismatic and interesting, and that was season 1. And so by the end of season 5, like we're finally like we should have payoff, and like there just wasn't really any payoff. Like she had some weird training. She could fight blind. That's about it. Like other than that, like there wasn't anything really that felt that it was set up and had a payoff for me.
That's so funny because I actually really enjoyed those aspects. I felt like her journey to I guess what's called the faceless
Men organization of men. Yes.
the black and white
was very I guess it teased the imagination. It kind of was a refreshing break from everything else. And I guess I wasn't expecting a payoff at this time. I'm kind of expecting a payoff in season 8 about what all that is about, what this God's true intentions are, basically.
Right.
And I think if I don't get that in season 8, then I'll be more disappointed in this season's whole journey. But I liked it. I liked it just because it was intriguing, you know.
Yeah, like I definitely enjoyed it during. Like I'm sitting there, I'm watching it, I'm liking it. I'm not constantly wondering where it's gonna go. It's just by the time it's all over, I'm like, well, I don't know if I like that. And now we're kind of waiting on at least like another thread or two for it to like come back and either nip her in the butt, or I almost think like she might not, be killed or assassinated by any of the faceless men later on down the road because she left. I think she might be like, she accomplished her goals and now it's time for them to just take her, and then she's actually a part of it and no longer a Stark, like for real. Like once everyone's all settled, dust is settled from everything. Like if she's, around in the end, I think she'll be taken away in a way, but like really become a part of it. So I don't know where it's going to lead, and I'm kind of like, it's just not satisfying yet. Like I think we're all still waiting. We're still hanging on some kind of thread that we don't know what it's going to be to come back.
Really the only complaint that I had with a lot of that was that it seemed to have important parts too quickly resolved when it came to her. Believe it or not, I actually think it would have been better served if this was a longer story arc for Arya.
I agree.
But I mean, I understand in terms of timing. I mean, you had like 4 seasons that you absolutely needed to show Theon being tortured by Ramsay. So, where does the time go?
You need that one person to have a character growth instead of this other person, plus all these gods and fates and assassins and all kinds of other things that could come into play. But that one guy that needed to be flayed a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Good choice. But I have to say, with what you were saying in terms of Arya, I think that those were the tests. She was sent on these tests to show her who she really is. And Now, we can look at it different ways, and maybe there will be some resolve that we get if Jock and Hagar shows up in season 8, which would be pretty neat in my opinion.
Yep.
But I think he saw a lot of promise in her. And I want to say he almost really was like a I don't want to say trainer, but really almost like Yoda to her, trying to get her to understand who she is and what she wants to be. And I think the whole idea of her with this training was the exact point that she's not a faceless man. You know, this isn't the place for her. Her place is being Arya Stark, but she needs to go after it, and she needs to commit to being Arya Stark.
Yeah.
Can have the vengeance part and other things like that, but this isn't her place. I had a theory a long time ago that I thought that the waif didn't even exist, that the waif was just a figment of her imagination the whole time, and that she was really fighting against what she thought was a person, but really it was the other side of herself, and that she had to sort of conquer the waif and to finally understand her path and her role in the future. And I don't know, there was almost a moment well, now we're going into next season, so
yeah.
but there was almost a moment of pride that I saw
on Jack and
Hagar's face when she finally said that she's Arya Stark, you know. So I don't know. I think this was I think that whole arc was a lot more complex than it came off in the show, and that's more a fault of the show, I think, than necessarily the arc itself. I like the arc. I just wanted to see her constantly, and compared to the rest of the season that I had to see, man, that would have been great. I could have spent a whole year on Arya training up.
Yeah. Well, see, I agree with you too that I think it was a test not to, like, she wasn't being tempted into being Arya with all of her tests, but the tests were to prove that she is Arya and that she's in the wrong place. And I think that was accurate. But the thing is, like, I don't feel like she gave up on her murder list. I don't feel like she didn't feel like a Stark anymore when she first went there. And I don't think by the end of it, there's any different conviction in her other than her abilities, which is great. And I would have loved that. But like, they were really leaning, like she didn't have an identity crisis. I don't think that was ever there. She just wanted to do what she needed to do to learn how to kill people. And that's why she saves her sword. That's why, like, you know, she hides needle instead of dumping it. Like, it was from the start. She was the same person as she was in the end. So I felt a little disappointed in that. And I felt like it didn't need to have that be an element of the story. Like, it would have just been really interesting to know more about them. Like, what do they do? Like, the gods asking for names, how the names are chosen, how the faces work. Like, how do you train for that? Like, the blind, like being able to take someone's sight, like, just there's all these great little elements in there, but they had this one theme in there that, like, there was no question she is Arya Stark, and she went into it as Arya Stark and she came out of it as Arya Stark, like that. So I was like, come on, like, I wanted more of like the other stuff that was going on. So
I thought it was more the power is in you all along, you know. Like one of those things. Like, she was looking to get more power, learning who to train with, get more, like, it was sort of like showing her, hey, you know, you have the ability to do this. You know, you have to be smarter.
Yeah, like, I almost wanted, like, her to not just go and choose to go train with these people, but rather, like, the coin be used in a moment of where maybe she was about to be murdered. Like there are no witnesses here. It's like, wait, I have a coin, or like just in some kind of desperate need. Like I was expecting the coin to be used like that. Like if you ever need help, like like the first time she had called upon it and had him do names. Like there was that favor, like something like that. Instead, she just kind of went there and found them, and it was kind of okay. Like I felt like it was built up a little bit more, and it could have done a little bit more by the end of it. So we'll see how it pays off. But I'm skeptical that I'm going to be satisfied.
I think they did teach her the value of life, like by making her blind and going through that whole journey. Like taking a life has a big weight. That not necessarily to say that she's not going to take a life, but now she's going to feel it in her bones a little more. Like this is real. I really am taking some, and when I make that decision, I mean it, because I know what could happen to me for doing it, but I'm going to do it anyway because I know it's the right thing to do in my mind.
Yeah, and it's also understanding that not everybody is your enemy. She was told people who are terrible people. And
I will say, having like that particular type of assassin definitely will make you think everyone is your enemy.
Oh yeah. Well, that's for sure. That's for sure. But it's great though. That's great. That was pretty.
It is. Oh. There's a lot of good elements to it, but I think I was expecting a lot more and diving into those more, and I think there was a lot more that they could have done with it. Even if they kept her for like another season and a half, I think I could have been more satisfied. Like it's great to see her later on with everything, but yeah, I could have done a little bit more time there. Like I wanted to say, I wanted him at the end to be like, "Hello, Arya Stark. Where shall we begin?"
Absolutely. All right, my go.
Yeah.
So this season for me was a hard watch. It really was, and there were just so many things that happened this season that really I had a hard time watching. I mean, even at the end of this season, I was really debating whether I was going to continue watching the show. The least satisfying, it encompasses a lot. I really think that the characters as a whole within this season, that for whatever reason, actions that they took did not seem to be even close to befitting what their characters would normally do. And the largest part of that, or the largest shift in character, I thought was Stannis Baratheon. It didn't make any sense to me, his arc the entire season. He comes in, he is supposedly, at least according to the books, he is supposedly the best general in all of Westeros, that he is a military and strategic genius. And it just seemed that this whole season, every single choice he made no sense whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Now, we can say he was manipulated by Melisandre, or that shadow baby he had a few seasons back took all his brain cells. But I mean, it was dumb what he did. I mean, his character became the dumbest person in Westeros. That's right, Lancel Lannister. He beat you out.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, he seriously, to burn your own child at the stake, you really think that that's going to help you win a war? You think that your army is going to follow you? It was snow, I mean, it's not like he's from Dorne either, where they'd be really confused by snow. It was frustrating. Like
it felt like a combination of a few things, but I mean, you know, like him and having this like religion, like I mean, the way she did it, like she made him like, you know, like a lord, like a lord of light, like not their sense of a lord, but like a religious lord. And I think that definitely like corrupted his thinking, like more than anything. He's like, oh, I'll make it because I am rightful, and like he's just completely entitled. And so I think once that started happening, like the strategy and the thinker and like the you know idea that he might even lose was just, it disappeared. And like if you don't think about how you could lose, you're not going to be able to avoid those things in strategy. And I think that was just totally gone from him. And I think he was just so like overconfident and arrogant about everything. Like there wasn't even a question of whether his men were religious like him and believed in her like he does, which is believing in him. And it was just, he didn't ask any of the reasonable questions that you should ask. And I mean, I feel like he was kind of like that the entire show that we saw him, because we've only seen with the Red Woman.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just seemed to be a very, very, very strange gap. I was told by book readers that he really at that point was in a lose-lose situation, that the snow was a lot worse than they made it seem on the show, and that his supplies were all cut off. And so it was sort of like a last-ditch effort. Yet at the same time, again, it doesn't make any sense to me. What's going on there? I mean,
I think they should have tried a little bit of leech, you know, use a little leech, see what that did last time with the other person with the king's blood. Do 2 leeches, you know, that's not the worst thing to do to a little kid, even though it's awful. Give that a try. See what happens with that, you know, like, yeah.
That's leeching therapy, it can be beneficial.
well,
There you go.
Yeah.
What if it would fix her face and like the scars from all that have people scared of her where she has to hide away? Leeches could have fixed that, you know?
I don't know. And then you got on top of that all the other things that happened in the season that I guess I'll save for a little bit later. But I don't know. It wasn't a very satisfying season for me. That said, the most satisfying thing that I saw this season, it's going to be a little bit of a weird one, but the Hard Home episode where the White Walkers and the Legion of Zombies came and showed off their true might. What an episode that was. That episode I liked. That episode I was totally into. When I was watching it, I was extremely satisfied because it's like, okay, here's the big bad. You know, they finally showed them. They finally showed what they're actually capable of. And that just, it blew my mind. So I loved seeing that. I think I was on team White Walker from that point forward, and I loved it.
You're a monster.
That's right.
That was a tragic moment where so many innocent wildlings were murderated and locked away in the gate. That was sad.
That was sad. Oh.
It was super sad.
They were separated from their mothers.
They made it to the boats, though.
But now they can live forever.
Oh my goodness.
You know, I didn't list that. Like, I don't even know if I want to call it satisfying. Like, that is. But I mean, like, satisfying isn't a good enough word for that battle. That battle is my favorite battle of the entire series, like up through season 7 so far. And that battle is what I have been waiting for since the very first scene of the entire series. Wow. So more than satisfying, to say the least. Like, that's what I've been waiting for. Like, big, epic, terrible zombie battles.
Oh yeah. I was ready to go right then. I'm like, yes, this season is going to be all about this, and then it wasn't.
Don't worry, we have season 8. It'll be all about that.
And then it won't.
I know. I'm ready for disappointment. I'm trying to tell myself it won't actually be constant giant zombie battles, but I really want it to, and it's possible.
Yeah, by the way, giants should stomp people more often. That is
Are
highly
there any
enjoyable.
giants left though? I think they've all been murdered.
All been zombified. Yeah,
Yeah.
one.
There's one in next season when we talk about season 6,
Oh.
and yeah.
All right.
Man,
Well, we jumped to season 8.
I know.
We do that. Yeah, that battle is fantastic. I want to see more of all of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so most hated character this season, like who just peeved you off?
Well, of course, for me, Ramsay Bolton and his weird girlfriend. It was just so sad seeing Sansa raped. It was just like she's just been through so much, and she was just trying to get a little confidence and just trying to feel safe. Like these poor girls, every time they feel like they're about to get to safety, they just get screwed. It's
see, that's hitting my saddest moment stuff, but I mean, so just Ramsay, just him being.
I'm sorry, Ramsay. I just hate Ramsay. Why does he have to do this?
He really is like grown up Joffrey, like. Except he wasn't growing up being told he was going to be a king, so he's just like slightly different in his messed up brain.
It's like he has a chance now to be this lord with the key to the north, and he tortures her?
Yeah.
He's just insanely sick. And I know they explain a little bit of why he's sick, like how he was conceived and everything like that, but that doesn't make it okay, you know? He's just a horrible person, just in and out. And
yeah, that was so much he was doing, and I'm just like sitting there like, what is his dad thinking right now? Like, he does not know how to handle this psycho at all.
No, he doesn't, but he never really did.
Yep.
I mean, he wasn't the best father of the year either during most of his life. So, no, I mean, Ramsay's a terrible character. I mean, extremely unlikable. I will say one of my biggest complaints with George R.R. Martin is he made a number of his characters, in my opinion, way too one-dimensional. And Ramsay is just one of those.
Yeah, like he's terrible in every way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes you ask, like I did this season several times, why do we even need to see this in terms of him constantly? Like, I think we all get he's a terrible person. Is there any point to continuously one-upping the terror that he does on a like basically weekly basis? Like, it's not enough, no, that he like tortures Theon for 8 seasons. It's that now he's also raping Sansa. It's like, why? What's the point in this? And I mean, I think without that scene, people would have still understood like how bad a situation is.
I mean, I felt like that was the assumption. Like he was gonna absolutely like beat her and force her for things, and like there was no question about that. I think.
Yeah, and I mean, why did one have to really show it? Like that's the whole thing. Like they could have had like a cut or even a look on Theon's face, like as you hear like hitting sounds in the background, and like her just looking completely messed up, like later, and you would have gotten the same idea. I just thought it was completely unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that it was like their scene wasn't gratuitous. It was like, I mean, it was awful, but like in the right ways that it was supposed to be awful. Like it wasn't one of their gratuitous scenes, I felt like. And yeah, like just having Reek's face be the majority of it too. Like that's poor Poor everything.
Mm.
I mean, I guess that's Ramsay's way of feeling like he's in power. He wants to, I guess torture is his power, but it's just.
He's a sicko.
Yep.
All right, well, what about you, Maria?
Jonathan?
Yeah, I just went.
Oh, wait, were you both Ramsay?
No. We were just talking about my Ramsay hatred.
Yeah, I hate
Oh.
Ramsay though too. But no, my most hated character, and this ties into again one of the least satisfying things from this season. I went with Hizdar Zolorak. That is the son of the master who Daenerys all of a sudden is going to try getting hitched up with.
Oh, that slime ball guy, the beard husband.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I should say, I mean beard is in like the cover for the reality behind the beard, but he does have a beard. And then there is that other guy who's her, what's the word for mistress when it's a guy? Bearded guy?
So hipster Dario Naharis.
Yes, so there's hipster Dario Naharis, specifically
Yes,
hipster. And then there's a twerpy previous slave owner guy.
He just wouldn't stop talking. I'm like,
Ugh, I know.
Just, ugh.
He was. I mean, I have to say, like, once again, this whole season, we can talk about Daenerys making mistakes while running a city, blah 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 blah. Sorry, yeah, I blah'd that. That's right, because that was a waste of my viewing time.
Oh wow.
But
she was there to learn.
I know. I highly disagree.
but her first decision, like after sending Jorah away, who I love. I've said that many a time.
Somebody does.
Yeah. Oh, go. Very well done. Very well done. That's right. Call me Jorah. Call me. She decides that this is a good idea. Oh, let's give up on the whole idea of Westeros. Like, to get in charge of Westeros and rule over Westeros, she pretty much has to form an alliance with like some other powerful family there. That's just how this works. She can say that she can rule it alone, fine, whatever. But that is the whole point. I think most of the people, Jorah being one of them, have told her that like multiple times.
Yeah.
Such that she even said to not hot Dario Naharis that that's pretty much what he is. He's just her little boy toy. Like she can't be married to him like in Westeros. This is the same exact thing, except you have an even whinier version.
He's so whiny.
Of hipster Dario Naharis.
I just kind of have a feeling that she was planning to murder him at some point. Just like, oh, he accidentally died.
Yeah, I felt like it was an entirely like keep your enemies closer marriage, not as like a well thought out alliance.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a keep your enemies close, make sure people aren't rebelling, but to put on hold, basically your entire possibility of ruling Westeros, which is apparently what she wanted to do this whole time.
I'd argue that she wanted to be where she was in Marine for a while. Like, she had mentioned that she wanted to stay and she wanted to rule and she wanted to learn how to rule before making the trip and invading and taking over and getting on the throne. She wanted to know how to be on that throne before she got there.
Right, exactly.
So I thought it was okay. I don't think the marriage was a good idea because there's not really exactly mention of divorce in this series. So I don't know what her options were in her head. I guess just kill him later. Peace now, kill him later. So who knows? But yeah, I don't know. I was okay with it.
No, nobody would miss him.
No, nobody would. Every minute he's not there, we are not asking where is he complaining about something, giving bad advice. All right, mine, I will actually say, was the High Sparrow. I thought he was horribly manipulative, and he comes off very. He has a lot of good points. Like, he makes a lot of sense for this, like, archerism person, but immediately when he gets power, he uses it to abuse other people, and I think that just cuts through all of his manipulative lies. Like, it's just nothing, like, it's not a greed for wealth. It's just, he has like this different kind of greed. Like, it's just a power greed. Like, I was very frustrated with him because he comes off so nice, and it's so pleasant, and I think he does believe the things he says, but he is a very violent person, and he conducts violent business, and so I didn't like him. As soon as he got power and started abusing people, I was like, nope, not into this guy.
Well, this is honestly, as a whole, even a good characterization of extremism.
Yeah.
And they can sound like they have valid points because some of those points are valid, like they're built off of that. But when you give somebody who is extremely radical power, and their whole ideology is basically entirely based on hurting people who they don't see as being worthy of themselves, you have a problem. And
Yep.
there was there was, I mean, you could see this coming from a mile away.
I'd say when Cersei like first met him, I would say he actually talked a good talk, and I was expecting something different. But as soon as it started being violent, like, I think she was dumb not to pull out and get him out of there. Like, it was like he was actually extreme in a wrong direction that takes over too easily.
I think she already lost power at that point.
Oh yeah.
I think she completely lost control of the situation as soon as she empowered him.
I'm just giving her credit for that. Doesn't have to be the moment that she would have, realized. But there was a lot of steps in between where she should have realized. She just worships violence as well. So I think she was fine with it once it started happening, because she didn't care. She didn't even think that it would happen to her because she thinks she out manipulates everyone. But I was very frustrated with him, like, doing it was all double speak. It was all contradictory to everything he says, and like, I expected them, like, stealing everyone's shoes and clothes and belongings and burning it and causing riots. Like, I kind of expected something like that, but like, they literally immediately went to Littlefinger's the whorehouse and like killed people. I was like, oh, he needs to not be given power if that's what his minions are going to be doing.
Yeah.
I like that they have that character and that whole setup in this story, though. I think it's an important representation.
Yeah,
very much, which is interesting because it's done in a slightly different way than how like the Lord of Light's religion is taken. Like, there is violence involved with it, but we haven't seen it done in like exactly like the same way as this. But right. It's everywhere. Like, it's extremism.
All right, so on to saddest moment.
Saddest moments, which I think we've all kind of touched on some of them.
Yeah. I mean, Sansa's rape was very sad. And seeing Theon kind of be tortured in a new way was also sad with that, because now he's feeling impotent again towards the same family that was nice to him, I mean, it was nice to see him save her-ish, but, Shireen getting burned alive was also extremely sad.
That was like
such a sweet, girl.
They made her so sweet and so bright and clever and like just like she was a shining light of like decency.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh, they spent so much time on her too. Like it was, because like after like I've seen it and I'd seen it before, so I know like big plot things that happen like this. But even on rewatching, I'm like kind of shocked about how much time they spend on her and like just how great they make her. Like, oh man, yeah. I think that was one of the saddest things for me for like the whole series. So it was probably there's definitely a few other little things in this season, but that was probably the top placer.
I wasn't as sad about that with Shireen getting burned alive as I was just really upset and frustrated at the show. I mean, it sounds similar, but I wasn't like shedding tears. It was more like, really, really why? And I don't know. I didn't really see the point or the logic in it at all. And for me, that was the pretty much the tipping point for me, where I was debating like, what's even the point of watching this show? Like, I can watch it for gratuitous violence, and sex scenes and to see horrible stuff happen, and out really the plot moving along. And I mean, that's the main takeaway I had for this season, is that I really didn't feel that the plot moved along all that much aside from the Hard Home episode.
Yeah, I mean, I felt we could talk about plot stuff shortly,
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, yeah, like this one was watching this season lead up to this episode where she's burned alive. I felt like there were a lot of little indicators that were there, so it wasn't wholly surprising, but it was it was just really, really like sad and disappointing that like, wow, they really would take it that far. Like yeah, it was definitely up there for me.
Yeah.
And like the wedding night, obviously, like just really, really awful. I had one other thing I actually noticed that was sad, which is hard to notice other things being sad in this season with like those two biggies. But there was a moment where Tyrion and Varys, like when Jorah, before he kidnaps him, they're at a brothel and he starts talking to a girl and he likes her. He's like, all right, let's go. And he just completely changes his mind. And you realize again that like, wow, he's like so sad and broken from the things like he had done in the previous season and like the life he had and like just where he's at now mentally. Like he couldn't even like take her, which is like such a huge change for him. Like it was, not only was it that he was, with this one woman, but she's gone now, and she's gone because of him pretty much entirely, and also like Dad because of him. And he's still holding on. Like he can't bring himself to like intimacy again, which is just a little tiny sad nugget that was at the base of a giant, not to make a pun, but a mountain of sadness with these two other really huge things that happened in this season.
Yeah, actually, my saddest moment was from the same scene that you're talking about. It just involved a different character.
Oh.
Yeah, and for mine, and honestly, there was a ton of sad things this season. There really was. But I'll say the thing that hit me hardest. Most of the other things that happened during the season that I would characterize as sad, like it to me was just more gratuitous and more just angered me than made me sad. But the one moment that really hit me was that scene in the brothel where Jorah was sitting at the table, and there was a one of the whores in the establishment who was dressed up as a really poor imitation of Daenerys. And just seeing him sitting there and like seeing he was absolutely devastated and wrecked. Like, this is a guy who really deeply cared about Daenerys and wanted her to do well, and then to be almost like openly mocked, for it. That didn't help, and to realize how much he lost. And I'll follow that up with what happened a little bit later is when he got grayscale. And so for me, that was one of the saddest points, because you see a character who really seemed like one of the good guys in the show, and somebody who deserved a lot better than what he was given. One who, even though, yeah, he was sent to spy on her at first, like, he's clearly shown that, he's not doing that, and that he's there to help her. And in my opinion, being too abruptly sent away. I don't know. That one stung. That one stung, because I liked him as a character, and it was just sad. It was sad.
He's a very tragic character for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to happy, funny moments. Got any in mind?
What a great question, because I went through this entire season and I'm like, there really isn't many.
Not this time.
Yeah, I picked one. This was the funniest moment to me. And by funniest moment, compared to all the other seasons, I think this is like way low. Like, yeah. not even close. But for me, it was when Jorah and Tyrion were picked up by the slavers, and the slavers have a lovely conversation, basically about how they're going to, how the dwarf is useless in terms of Tyrion, they were referring to, and to cut off his head and then cut off his cock. And Tyrion responded, because they believed that the cock of a dwarf is magical, and Tyrion basically responded by going ahead and saying, "No, you can't, cut off my head and dick, because then they won't know it's from a dwarf." And so
he's so serious in that moment too. It's perfect.
That's right. And he was able to barter for his life, followed by the slaver saying, "Okay, keep him alive until we find a cock merchant."
Yep.
And I'm like, all right. That was a fleeting moment in the sun for season 5 of the movie.
I did like the other moment with him though, where it's like, no, we're a pair. We're both fighters. Like, you're a fighter, and like he just takes his chains or something right there and starts beating the other guy, and they're like, all right, I guess he fights. Like,
that was good too. Those were the moments.
So good moments. I mean, he almost always has some of my funniest moments. Like, I actually was giggling the whole time he was depressed, basically until like the brothel. Everything he was doing and saying was just funny, and I just love like how dark his humor went the whole time. Like, getting out of the crate, drinking all the wine, throwing it up immediately, drinking some more, like just all of it. He just had the worst time, but now he was alive and free. I could kind of laugh about it. I did actually, I didn't know if I want, I mean, obviously I ship this as well, but like there was the love scene with Sam and Gilly, and it was really kind of funny too, because 1, he's Sam and she's Gilly, and 3, he was beaten up like really badly. So it was a really awkward but sweet scene, and so I thought that one was funny as well. But yeah, as always, Tyrion pretty much takes the majority of the humor.
I forgot about that scene
Yeah.
in this season. Yeah, go Sam, go Sam.
She gets on him, and and he's just like, oh my. This is a very Sam moment. It was really great.
Yeah, for me, Brand of the Blackwater with the sand snakes in jail. I thought that was pretty fun. They're a bit of banter, and the sisters getting at each other. I thought that was hilarious. Not
Yeah.
hilarious, but funnier than other things in the season. So
That
Oh, go ahead.
that final perfectly timed and said
Slut.
slut. Yeah, that was perfect. That was perfect. That was perfect. If you don't remember that scene, rewatch it. It's enjoyable. It really was reminiscent of sisters or friends and like what they might say to one another. It was good timing. Good timing.
It was great. Like, it was really entertaining, and I really liked seeing that dynamic in this show, because like you see it a little bit with some of the friends, but like these girls were like vicious with each other, but like they trust each other at the same time. Like, it was just a really fun dynamic to see, especially like they're basically royalty. Like, they treat the bastards like royalty, so these girls are royalty as well. And to see that kind of behavior from them was sweet.
Oh, they were my favorite characters this season by far. I really enjoyed them. So I was hoping they'd be a much more active part of the show than they ended up being.
Right.
Yeah, same there. All right. So most shocking moments. Now, I know we've kind of gone into the saddest and those kinds of things, but maybe something else stood out as shocking.
Well, the same thing that was sad was shocking for me. Shireen being burned at the stake was shocking because I really believed Stannis loved his daughter beyond everything that he was doing. I really didn't think he cared for ruling Westeros more than his daughter, because how is he supposed to, that his daughter like is his life, like he's now you're a king but you don't have your daughter anymore. How are you going to even feel like ruling? It just didn't make sense, because based on how I've seen him, like what Jonathan's saying, I was shocked that his character would allow that. I thought for sure, I knew that Melisandre was going to lead up to that, but I really believed he was not going to let it actually get that far.
Yeah, I have the same shocking moment there. I was completely shocked that that he actually burned her alive. It made no sense. It was completely out of character. I didn't see that one coming in the very least. I will give a runner-up though to that, and the runner-up to me would be Arya going blind, taking her away. That I did not see coming whatsoever, and I'm like, oh my gosh! I'm like, whoa! I'm there being like, will she ever get her sight back? Like is she just now? That blew my mind. So that I guess that's a runner-up for me.
That's a good one. That's definitely a good one. I think for me, and this is when I first saw it, and just because it was different than all the others that we've seen, and it's so far, I think it's been the only one like this, is we get an actual just flashback of Cersei and the witch, which yeah, like that's huge. That's literally like the only flashback we legitimately get, because everything else we do get some, but they're all like through the three-eyed raven. Like, it's this one is just an actual flashback, and I was like freaking out, because like I really like the show, because sometimes a lot of shows do go back in the past and they show what happened, and this one has gotten to that point now that Bran is with the three-eyed raven, but like prior to that, like there were not flashbacks. It was just like, oh, characters fondly talking about these things, which I thought was really interesting and really great, because in a lot of shows we see it, but we don't hear the characters talk about it, and so it's nice to have that little bit of nuance and reality. Like, it felt very grounded in that way, and this just felt so big, like, we're seeing a bit with Cersei, and there's a witch predicting the future. Like this is huge. Like this is like that's like I just thought it was very important, like plot wise, and we see what happens, we see the repercussions, and I think like you hit the nail on the head talking about Cersei prior, where like she just knew all the children were gonna die anyways, so she's just grasped for power, and she gets more and more over it as each child dies. Like it's just like, yep, which was right. Oh, and more right, and more right, and more right. And okay, cool. And so she's just going down like that path even further. Like, I just thought it was really, really interesting that they actually had like a legitimate flashback.
I'm glad you brought that up because I completely forgot that this was this season. Like I thought this was next season that this happened. And so, yeah, no, that was probably one of my favorite scenes in the show. That wasn't a battle. I absolutely loved that that scene with her and Maggie the Frog. That was just phenomenal.
It was so in character too. Tell me or I'll gouge out your eyes. Little snotty young Cersei.
I was expecting Maggie the Frog to look a little different though. She just seemed kind of like a wasted model almost. Like
a swamp model.
Okay.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny.
That was confusing. But...
I've seen her down the street.
All right. So, plot elements that were introduced this season. I got like 2 overall, I think. Like ones I'm mostly just curious about, but I'll let you guys go first.
For me, John being killed was, I guess, exciting for me because I did not think it was possible for the story to continue because it seems like this is really all coming to a head with John, and I guess my thoughts were, how are they going to bring him back? Because I didn't believe he was going to stay dead. Like the minute they stabbed him, I'm like, oh, he's not going to stay dead. But how? Will it be the witch? Will it be what? The Lord of Light? And what's he going to become once he's back from the dead? And will that affect the White Walkers? And I just felt like that was going to change a lot of the coming storyline.
Oh, yeah. And, it's really telling that we have gone about an hour into the show and we hadn't talked about John being stabbed to death so many times, based off of everything that happened. It's just everything else seemed more shocking or...
It was a little Ned Starky of him, okay?
Yeah. Yeah. But for me, the plot element that was introduced, and I know we can talk about the White Walkers, they've always been around, you knew that they were bad, but you just didn't know how bad. And for me, the most exciting plot element that there was that they get into a huge battle, they kill a ton of people, and it was that ending scene where, the White Walker or the Ice King is just staring at John and then lifts his hand, and then you see all of the army of the dead rise immediately, and I'm like, oh yeah, it is on. It is on.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that really just shows just how completely devastating they are and how overwhelming everyone alive should be feeling.
Yeah, like it's saying you have to kill every one of them in one go.
So bad. I love it. It does nothing but add to their armies, and you just see it. It's just so good. I think
you guys, all we have to do is kill the controlling ones, and then everything's done.
Sure, but think of it this way. In video games, for example, this is like going into a fight against a huge army, and then in the back they just have a ton of spawners. So they keep like reviving and spawning new
Oh,
new people constantly.
Yeah,
And
when you take out the boss, you still got to kill all the spawn that remain.
exactly. It's like, oh wait, and then it takes you too long after killing like the other bosses that again they start respawning and they respawn the boss. It's anyway, yeah.
It's great. I think for mine, I really, really liked having Tyrion and Varys on Dany's team. Like that was like a big plot thing that I was very excited about, and to see where it went and how it would go from there. I mean, other than that, there was a moment when, I mean, more creepy Red Witch stuff, where she tells Jon when he turns her down that he knows nothing. And it's like, how is she tapping into the dead? Like it was, I thought that was really interesting. I mean, not to uh, not to diminish Jon Snow being stabbed or anything, but I was actually like fully confidently 90% sure like he was not going to stay dead, and I wasn't really that worried about him. Like, I really wasn't. It was like a 10%, 1 in 10, like maybe he'll actually stay dead. But I think the show's been leading up to a lot of this kind of stuff, and we got the Red Witch there, and like John's just definitely too important to the story. Like I really just at that point didn't feel worried he was going to die. I'm definitely more worried for people he cares about, less so based on who they are, more so just based on how close they are to him.
yeah.
But yeah.
I really felt for Melisandre actually when she took off her young attire and showed her true age.
Yeah, I think that's in the next one, but yes.
Wait, no, this is the season. It is
That
this
there
season.
was this season?
Yeah, she when she comes back, it's definitely this season. When she comes back from murdering the child and gets to the place,
yeah, you're right.
she becomes the old woman and just gets in bed and like cries basically. I felt for her.
I think it was right before though that she.
No.
I'm pretty sure it's next one because it's like right before. It's like
This is before Jon dies.
No, I think it was after.
Are you
Because
serious?
like they show how sad she is, and like it was after he dies because they show how sad she is, and she's depressed about it, and like when it's funny because it's Davos brings up, this is definitely next. This is why I keep these notes because I can't remember, like I literally do not remember. I had to go look. I was like, wait, you're right. Wait, are you right? But he says like, well, I mean, we have her. And like, I don't know, you haven't seen the things she could do. And then she's in the room, like just totally depressed, and she just feels useless. And she takes off the necklace, and she's 200 years old. And then it's like, no, she's insanely powerful. And like, then they come to her, and then they do the other stuff that we'll talk about next season.
Season 5. I'm sorry, you guys.
Oh, I thought it was too when I had remembered back on it, because like there's always like the big episode where the big thing happens, and then there's like the lull, like the one episode afterwards that's calm. Like I remembered it being like the last episode, like where we see that she's old. Like I remembered it that way too. But that's why I rewatched everything.
Oh.
What a forgettable season that we keep adding other events.
Okay, so I mean,
well, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't totally hate Melisandre because I understand that she really is trying to believe in the Lord of Light, and got betrayed.
So much came to her because of that belief. Like there really was so much that had worked out, and that just was great. Like she's having a real dilemma too, I think. Like she's looking for these things and to have meaning because she's like probably very close to death, and probably is, I mean, absolutely has become old unnaturally in ways, and who knows how old she really is, but like I suspect like how old she looks, like that's like probably half of her actual age too. Like so like she's been around, and she's finally finding these things with meaning, and then like no meaning. How much longer do you really have? Like So I definitely did feel for her for that. Finally felt something for her, but
Right?
yeah. All right, let's go to our why. I mean, you've definitely already mentioned. I have a feeling we've all already talked about our whys. There's one thing we haven't mentioned yet that happened this season that I'm wondering if you guys have listed as far as our whys. That was dumb, either as the characters or what happened, or like as the filmmakers like behind it. Give me your why.
I can start. I originally wrote down Stannis period, Sansa period, Daenerys period, Stannis again period. But one of those I didn't actually quite touch on, and that was Sansa. I felt that she made some really terrible decisions this season, like really, really awful decisions. I can understand in the tavern when she was introduced to Brienne that she didn't want to go with her. That makes sense. She doesn't know Brienne.
Mm-hmm.
She knows Littlefinger.
Mm-hmm.
And this might go back to last season, the decision she made to cover for Littlefinger.
Mm.
But when it came to the marriage in the first place to Ramsay Bolton and the agreement to do that, that's a no-go. I mean, I don't know what if she really thought she had no other option as her being what many people thought was possibly the last remaining Stark heir.
Mm-hmm.
And to go ahead and to immediately marry the people who butchered your entire family.
You make a very good point.
That makes no sense.
I thought she had no fight in her for that, and Littlefinger's arguments were awful. I was like, yeah, she'll be distraught, but no, she should have been way more than distraught. Like, I definitely agree with you that should have been like like I felt like they should have kidnapped her. Like, it almost shouldn't have even been like a Littlefinger thing. Like, it should have not happened so strongly.
Yeah, it could have been. She could have stomped her feet and said anything. She could have been like, she could have picked any single northern clan and said, I would rather marry them, get the rest of the north to rally around me because they don't like these guys, and it would be better.
Yep.
She could have married somebody from Bear Island. And she could have won the war, you know? I mean, it made no sense for her to just bend so easily and so willingly with this. And that's why, you know, I do hear a lot, especially during this time, like they were saying, oh, look at Sansa, she's finally making the right decision and she's growing up. And I'm like, no, she's still the same character that she was early on. She's making the same bad choices. And that's not to say at all what ended up happening to her was right or justified, because it's not. It's clearly not. But at the same time, you have to make better decisions. You really do have to make better decisions.
And I feel like since she's grown up a little bit, like this was like her only bad decision, and it was like presented to her as like not a choice, but like she could have found a way out. She could have convinced him in some way. Like she could have asked, what does this do for you? I think that would have been a really huge one. Why are you doing this? What does this do for you? Like, why would you do this? Why not keep me safe in this other place? Yeah. Like, what's the rush on this? Why don't you go kill them first and I'll just take their castle? Why don't you, like, there's just so many other ways. And like the idea too is there's a lot of and I would have brought up, and like they bring it up sometimes here and there. Like I'm surprised Sansa didn't bring it up. It's like the Starks are dead. Who cares? Like there's no name to them. That name carries like no weight. Everyone's disbanded or dead from the Starks. And then here, go to this castle of these people who murdered your family and just rely on your name. Which, you know, you have no armies, you have no anything backing you currently. Just go in there and try not to die. Like, what did they expect really to happen? Like, she wasn't going to be treated like royalty. I think it was a gamble that she would even come out alive, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, let's not
She
sugar.
lets herself be treated like cattle.
Yeah.
With the Lannisters, now with the Boltons, it's whoever wants to get the prize cow, she just lets them take her.
Yeah. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it here. She's never winning a battle of wits with Littlefinger, no matter what the discussion is. She's just not. Yes, remind me of this statement in a few seasons. Don't worry about it. But she's not. By the way, not a spoiler.
She should have put on a tantrum. You know, she should have played her "I'm a child" card and just put on the worst tantrum. Like even that. Like just there's just.
And then said to him, like, what are you gonna do? You know, are you going to hit me over the head and drag me there, because that's what it's gonna take.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And like scare him into it. Say they're going to kill me. My name doesn't have merit anymore. Like not to them.
I would have if I'm Sansa, and Littlefinger even remotely suggested something like this.
Mm-hmm.
I would have realized what side he was on immediately from that situation. Now, maybe we can say, oh, Sansa at this point in the story arc is still like 15 or 16 or however.
Yeah, I think 15, the oldest.
Okay.
Well,
I think.
She's naive, but at that
15,
age.
you do know a thing or two. At 15, you are pretty saucy, I'd say, especially as a girl.
Yeah, I was going to say, females probably have the ability to. They're the dumbest people on the planet. But. By the way, gender equality. But true. No. But, I mean, come on.
Yeah, like, I would have literally, like, if it was, like, you know, you and you're in those shoes, and if you're, you know, this kind of still naive girl who's gone through all this terrible stuff, and this person who used to work for the Lannisters takes you to a Lannister ally, and you're the last remaining person of your bloodline that you know of. Really, I mean, they're not really counting Jon. Like, I would think it would make sense to feel like he was obviously a traitor and he was trying to get her killed, and it was some kind of debt to the Lannisters that he was getting paid off to finally, you know, just go and turn her in, essentially. Like, there is, like, no way I would have thought at all that marriage would have in any way worked how the marriages are supposed to work. And screw that, marriages with those guys, like, I mean, what happened with the other marriage? Like, you don't want to have any more marriages. You can't trust those anymore.
I know. After Joffrey and him killing my father like that, I wouldn't want to get married to anybody. I'd be like, no, I am not marrying anybody. Just you go marry him, okay? I'm done with that.
Yeah. Like, it is terrible.
I mean, imagine this. We're going to make this even simpler than the situation that had happened in the show. You know, you're basically at, say, school. You're young, and some guy who's also in your class, like, beats your siblings to a pulp, sends them to the hospital, you know, then goes, like, burns down your house, your family house, like, cuts the brake lines to your parents' car.
Marriage material.
Okay, and then your not even best friend, maybe, but one of your friends is like, oh, you should, like, totally go out with him.
He's popular.
And
you'll have like lots of people like support you and stuff if you do that.
You'll be like a queen.
Yeah,
You
like
get a slap across the face.
yeah. I mean, are you gonna do that? Like, that is dumb.
Yeah, like it didn't make sense to me. Like it was, I felt like to her not just like an unpleasant thing, but just so obviously dangerous. Like to even go near them. Like, yeah. No, that's a very good why moment. We've been all talking about this one for a while already.
Yeah,
we should pick some others. But it's
got...
valid. It's valid. It's funny too.
Yeah, this one got me turned.
Okay. I think I had like two, like there were, similar ones like that with some of the characters and some of the things they did, but I think I had two, and I think it was from like the creators, like the people who were making the show. One of the things, again, like Jon Snow dying and being killed and betrayed like that, it's like they just couldn't figure out a way to make it so he would not feel obliged to the crows anymore. I'm like, okay, so he has to die. Like, we know he's not gonna be dead. Like, like I said, there's a 1 in 10 chance, and a slight possibility that he might be dead for a little while. Like, so I felt like that was very, I wasn't convinced, which sucks, especially for this show when like you're not worried that somebody's going to die. That sucks. So I almost feel like now with him and stuff that happens next season, like I'm just even less concerned that he's gonna die. I think possibly very, 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 very last episode of the whole thing, but now that entire journey's kind of been it's less dramatic for me because I'm not worried about that for him. But the other thing, this one was super annoying. And it felt like they were doing the same thing. Like, look, aren't they dead? Ooh, and it's like they're alive. Like I know it, obviously. It was when Sansa and Reek are escaping, and they push Ramsay's mistress, I forget her name, to a fall to her death. And it's probably like a 30-40 foot fall gauge from what it looked like, and she dies. And then they immediately jump over the ledge, which looks like a much steeper, longer fall. And I just was like, did you literally just show us somebody dying from a less high of a fall to make us think that these two are going to be dead right now? Like when we see them next season? Are you kidding? Like you don't do that to us. We're smarter than that. Your audience is smarter than that. Like it's just dumb of you.
Yeah, and by the way, growing up in a very cold climate where there was snow, I will say this to anybody, especially, I don't know why any young children would be listening to this show. I don't know why people in general would be listening, but that's beside the point. But if you get the bright idea to jump off of a rooftop onto concrete, which is covered by like a snowdrift, because you think the snowdrift is going to protect you, you're gonna probably wind up seriously injured, if not dead. Like, that's not what it's
fluffy snow.
That is not how snow.
Or it is fluffy and it squishes and hits the ground when you do.
That's right.
Yeah, like I've played in snow, and it would take like a lot of snow, and snow it's either too fluffy and you go through and hurt yourself, or it's hard and you hurt yourself because it's like ground. Like my big annoyance with this is like, okay, they lived through that fall, cool, but they immediately, like right before that, show us somebody not living through a similar or higher fall. And I felt like she could have just died in some other way. There could have been something else that had happened, and it would have it felt like it was like a really obvious like red herring. Oh look, you could die from a fall, and then these two characters have a fall. Like
I was.
It'd be kind of crazy if Dion just suddenly got strong, like snapped her neck or something. It's like, whoa, they treated him like a dog. Now he's like mighty. That would have been kind of cool.
Right. Or just disabled her in some way, even. Like, she didn't necessarily have to die right there either.
I was actively hoping that they died there. That the
Oh,
when
no.
I'm not joking. I'm like, this is so dumb. This is a terrible story arc. Like, they sort of deserve it. And like, they just zoom out, showing the shot of like their crumpled bodies, like bleeding out, and I'd be like, yep.
Yeah, I was expecting broken legs or something.
Uh,
But okay, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, not for me, but I will definitely say you're not alone in that feeling. A lot of people said that too. Like, are they gonna die? Good. Like,
good riddance.
a lot of people were into them just being done. Like, all right, cool. They killed themselves. Oh gosh, I hope so. Like, that's literally the attitude.
I mean, I do get the feeling that Sansa's gonna mess something up in season 8 because it's like now she's got this little bit of power and she's still not smart enough to wield it. I'm nervous for season 8 and what she's gonna do.
I have to say, I don't think there's that big of a chance of her winding up on the throne. But if she's the one who ends up on the throne, I swear I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I might have to. I don't know. I might have to make some sort of terrible wager bet about this because oh man, I don't know if I can take that.
That's why we're gonna do a whole maybe extra episode for the entire series after it's all wrapped up and we all have collected or lost our bets with who's gonna be on the throne.
It's like in a cold sweat already. This is too much. Too much. Oh.
All right. Wait, Maria, did you go yet?
Yeah, I did.
Wait, did you? Oh, yes. Okay. So, any overviews of the themes and some of the feelings? I know you in particular do not like this season, so maybe we'll let you add to it in a second. I'm gonna go for this one. I think how I noted last season was a lot about the splitting of things that were together. I felt this one was definitely a lot of like the coming together in new ways. And I wouldn't quite say like this season is like coming together in alliances because I think a lot of that's like later on next season, but this was like a lot of journeys merging, a lot of individuals coming together out and stuff in that league. Like, I mean, obviously Dany, Varys, and like their storylines merging in that way, and Sansa, Reek, like there's just a lot of that. So I felt this was more of like a coming together and like dead weight being killed off or shedded, and I think it was a lot of like there was a, let me see, was it this? I think it was this one. Yeah, this one I think had like the most finales of any of the seasons we've seen. Like if you were to like just if I had to like just remember like before I rewatched like what was like the season finale of this one, there was the Sansa and Reek jumping, so escaping, which is pretty big, and them coming together. There was the Baratheon battle and Brienne's revenge, which is also really big. Like that's the end of a pretty big storyline too. John dying, like that's, I forget if that was like, you know, before I had rewatched, if that was like the last episode or second to last. The Walk of Shame, super iconic. We had the zombie battle, another super iconic, and then we also had Dany being saved by her dragon in the arena, turning Tyrion outside of his cynical ways. Like those are, and Shireen. Like, we had a lot of season finales in this one too, and I think it really like just shows how big each of those stories have gotten, and it really does like put a cap on a lot of them and join a lot of them together.
Yeah, I have similar feelings as you do towards this season. I liked this season because I feel like it got messy. I felt like we were in the trenches with these characters now that they've been uprooted from their lives and they're trying to make their way. They're all learning from their mistakes. Daenerys fumbling forward, trying to rule without knowledge. And then they're slowly learning lessons from that, but I like it because it feels real. It feels like that's what would happen in that kind of situation. There has to be kind of a fallout from big change that they've gone through, and I thought it was necessary. I thought the season was frustrating, but I feel like it was necessary.
Yeah, I like that too, like the note of like fallout. Like things coming together and there being like fallout with these other things and other things being finished.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to be the ray of sunshine on this.
I'm going to just go on record again saying how extremely iconic this was, how great the zombie battle was, the walk of shame, like Dani being saved by her dragons and reuniting with them and saving the city. And yeah, go ahead.
So, you know what? I'll start out positively.
Maybe go negative first, because
maybe go negative first and positive first?
New negative, different negative.
different negative.
Well, end on a nice note, That's because then we'll want to just keep on ranting if we don't.
I'll end on a nice note. I will. I'll start it off by saying, yeah, everything that I said during this podcast is true. I despise this season. I did. I thought that it served very little purpose, although there were big moments interspersed throughout. And I think most of all is that this was the one season where I felt that the character writing was not even close to the same standard that the previous seasons had. In more optimistic news, though, there were points this season that did get me looking forward to what would end up happening. Arya's whole trip in Bravos, that was intriguing to me, with where is that going to go? Jon Snow, I wasn't as intrigued in what's going to happen to him, but I was sort of hoping he'd turn into a White Walker. I thought that would be pretty fun. But nobody knew the difference anyway. And I also was looking forward to how things were going to evolve with Dorne, especially with the Sand Snakes. I thought that they were awesome. I thought they were great characters, and it made me ask a lot, why was so little time spent on them during the season? So there were positive moments throughout the show. It just felt that the negative moments just completely overpowered any forward progress for me. So I went into the next season at an all-time low in terms of my expectations. And spoiler, I was extremely surprised by how good the next season was. So just goes to show, every show has a down season. I just think that this was the down season for this show.
Oh man, that's so iconic though. Speaking of down seasons, and not to jump ahead too much, but I'm pretty positive. I still need to rewatch season 7, but I'm quite positive that is my down season.
Oh, really?
Yep. Well, we'll get into that when we get into that. But yep, that's where I'm at with it. So I felt like this one did a very good job about. It also had a really good theme, I felt like, of escalation, which is something I'm really into with these stories, where they get more grand. So even though there's like all these characters coming together, the stories are getting bigger. It's becoming more grand, and I really like that. Like that's. Like, I mean, like I said, like the zombie battle, for one, like that's what I've been waiting for since literally the first scene, and to see that manifest was really cool. And there's a lot of other things like that as well. So the escalation part, I think, is really great. So I'm looking forward to more of that in the future.
All right. Is that it?
Maria, any other notes?
Well, Maybe I'm the only person that wasn't as impressed with the whole White Walker scene.
Ooh.
Only because
How dare you?
Oh, you're ending with this? Oh no. Oh, now we have our clickbait title. This is good. This is good.
Maria is bored with White Walkers.
because I just get it just seems like there's a simple answer to these guys. Oh, just kill the 100 that are controlling the rest and we're done. Well,
It
okay.
sounds so hard.
On. I don't know. I'm sorry.
You know, conventional weapons won't really kill them.
Really funny.
You have to kill them while also battling like a million of these dead things. But no, it's cool. Range weapons, you know, hard to come by. But no, I can see what you're saying. What you're saying. It's all coming together.
There's people out there that just don't appreciate zombies, and there's people that do.
Man. Oh. Well, on that note, spry tubers out there, thank you so much for listening to me rant for the past hour and a half, even though you're all here to hear the other two lovely Dames of Thrones on this show. But we really appreciate your viewership and watching and your support as well. Please, actually, I think this would be good fun. Leave in the comments what you think about this episode. Who do you agree with? Do you think that this was a down season? Do you think that this was a good season? Do you think it's an iconic season? Do you think it's a season that didn't quite hit the mark? We'd love to hear it because I do believe this is the first season we've had that all of us have major differences in how we viewed it. So I think that would help us as much as, you know, it would help you guys reach out there, talk to each other. I think that's what people do in this day and age. Who knows? But please do share, like, and subscribe. That definitely helps us and allows us to produce all this, I guess, great content. You know, but I'll be positive. I think it's great, maybe. Uh, far better than what happened this season. Am I right? Okay. And if you didn't like this show, as usual, share, like, and subscribe twice. You know, you gotta make sure that you bring more of that hatred in here. Expand that viewer base. Very important. So thank you all. Have a wonderful evening here from all of us, and until next episode.